Have you ever noticed how the very things you grip most tightly in your life are often the sources of your deepest suffering? That desperate need to control outcomes, to be understood, to receive validation from others, to protect your image, to win arguments, to prove your worth through endless achievement. There is a moment that arrives in every genuine spiritual journey where something inside you simply breaks, not in a way that destroys you, but in a way that finally sets you free. Manly Palmer Hall spoke of this moment with profound clarity when he taught that healing, true healing of the soul, begins not when you find all the answers, not when others finally see your value, not when circumstances align perfectly, but when you make a radical choice to stop caring in the way you once did. This is not apathy, not resignation, not giving up on life itself. This is something far more mysterious and powerful. This is the moment when you stop allowing the external world to determine your internal state, when you cease being a puppet controlled by the opinions, judgments, and energies of others. This is the sacred art of spiritual detachment that every mystery school, every authentic tradition has pointed toward across the centuries. The ancient Stoics understood this, the Buddhist masters taught this, the Hermetic philosophers encoded this wisdom in their texts, and those who have walked the path of genuine self-transformation have discovered this truth written in the depths of their own being. What if everything you have been taught about caring, about involvement, about emotional investment has kept you trapped in a cycle of suffering that was never necessary? What if the very mechanism you believed would bring you closer to peace has been the architect of your pain? The paradox that confronts every seeker at some point in their journey is this overwhelming question of how to navigate existence in a world that constantly demands your attention, your reaction, your emotional energy, while simultaneously maintaining the inner sanctuary that spiritual practice requires. You wake up each morning and within moments, you are bombarded with situations that pull at you, people who want something from you, circumstances that trigger old wounds, interactions that seem designed to test every ounce of patience you possess. Hall understood that the masses of humanity live in what he called a state of perpetual reaction, moving through life like leaves blown by every passing wind, never anchored in anything deeper than the shifting tides of circumstance. The world celebrates those who care intensely, who are passionate about everything, who engage with every drama, who have opinions on every matter, who stay constantly connected, constantly involved, constantly invested in the theater of human affairs. But there is a secret that those who have penetrated beyond the surface of existence have discovered. This secret whispers that true power, genuine freedom, authentic peace emerges not from more involvement, but from a particular kind of sacred withdrawal. This is not the withdrawal of the coward who runs from life, but the withdrawal of the master who understands that not every battle requires your participation, not every drama needs your energy, not every opinion demands your response, not every situation merits your emotional investment. When you begin to practice this form of spiritual non-caring, something remarkable happens in the architecture of your consciousness. The things that once could devastate you with a single word lose their power. The situations that once consumed days of your mental energy simply dissolve. The people who once controlled your emotional state through their approval or disapproval find themselves unable to reach that part of you that remains untouched, pristine, free. Consider the teaching that appears across traditions in various forms, but always carries the same essential truth. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of performing action without attachment to results. The Tao Te Ching describes the sage who acts without striving, who accomplishes without claiming credit. The Christian mystics spoke of being in the world, but not of it. Hall, synthesizing these streams of wisdom, pointed toward a state of consciousness where you engage fully with life while remaining internally detached from outcomes. This sounds simple when stated abstractly, but the actual practice of this principle requires nothing less than a complete restructuring of how you relate to existence itself. Most people spend their entire lives in a state of what could be called emotional codependency with reality, constantly seeking signals from the external world to tell them if they are okay, if they are worthy, if they are safe, if they matter. Every interaction becomes a test. Every outcome becomes a judgment. Every response from others becomes evidence either for or against their fundamental value as a human being. This is exhausting beyond measure. This is the source of the epidemic of anxiety, depression, and existential despair that characterizes modern existence. You were never meant to live this way. constantly braced against the possibility that something or someone might reject you, hurt you, diminish you. The ancient wisdom traditions understood something that contemporary culture has almost entirely forgotten. They understood that your true nature, your essential being, exists in a dimension that cannot be touched by the fluctuations of the external world. You are not your circumstances. You are not your achievements. You are not the opinions others hold about you. You are not even your own thoughts and emotions, which come and go like clouds across the sky of awareness. When you begin to recognize this, when you actually experience this rather than just believing it conceptually, everything changes. The things you thought you needed to care about so desperately reveal themselves as ultimately insubstantial, not unimportant in the relative sense, but incapable of defining who you are at the deepest level. Hall often spoke about the necessity of developing what he called philosophical immunity, a state where the attacks, judgments, and energies of others simply cannot penetrate your inner sanctuary. Think of the master martial artists who have trained so thoroughly that their bodies respond to threats without conscious thought, moving with a grace and efficiency that appears almost supernatural to the untrained eye. Spiritual detachment works in a similar way. When you have truly cultivated this practice, when you have genuinely chosen to stop caring in the way you once did, you develop a kind of psychological and spiritual immunity to the slings and arrows that once could wound you so deeply. Someone insults you and you observe the words as you might observe rain falling, acknowledging their existence but not allowing them to determine your internal weather. Someone rejects you and you recognize this as information about their perspective, their needs, their journey, without making it mean something about your fundamental worth. Someone tries to manipulate you with guilt, anger, or emotional drama, and you see the pattern clearly. Respond with compassion if appropriate, but refuse to be pulled into the energetic vortex they are creating. This is not coldness. This is not lack of empathy. This is actually the foundation of genuine compassion, because you are no longer relating to others from a place of your own neediness, your own wounds, your own desperate hunger for validation. You can truly see them, truly hear them, truly respond to what they need rather than what you need from them. The alchemists understood this process through their symbolic language of transformation. They spoke of the nigredo, the blackening, the dark night where everything you thought you knew dissolves into chaos. Then comes the albedo, the whitening, where a new clarity emerges. Finally, the rubedo, the reddening, where the transformed substance takes on its final perfected form. Jung, drawing on these alchemical traditions, recognized that psychological and spiritual development follows this same pattern. There comes a point in every genuine transformation where you must die to who you thought you were, where you must release your grip on the identity you have constructed, where you must allow the dissolution of the false self that has been running your life. This is terrifying. Everything in you wants to resist this process. Every cell in your body screams that you need to care, you need to control, you need to manage outcomes, you need to protect yourself through vigilance and effort. But there is a voice deeper than this fear, a knowing that whispers the truth that Hall and the great teachers have always pointed toward. This voice says that on the other side of this death, on the other side of this letting go, on the other side of this choosing to stop caring in the old way, there is a life more abundant, more free, more authentic than anything you have experienced in your frantic attempts to control and manage existence. Neste momento, quero fazer uma pausa e perguntar: você já se sentiu exausto de tentar controlar tudo, de se importar tanto com cada opinião, cada resultado, cada reação dos outros? Essa sensação de carregar o peso do mundo nos ombros, como se você fosse responsável por fazer tudo dar certo, por agradar a todos, por nunca falhar, nunca decepcionar. Se você está sentindo essa exaustão agora, saiba que você não está sozinho nessa jornada de descobrir que talvez haja outro caminho. Compartilhe nos comentários apenas escrevendo: estou pronto para soltar, para que outros buscadores espirituais saibam que não estão sozinhos nessa escolha de liberdade. Às vezes, o simples ato de admitir que estamos cansados da velha forma de viver já abre a porta para uma nova possibilidade. Seu comentário pode ser exatamente o encorajamento que alguém precisava para também fazer essa escolha transformadora. Agradeço sua coragem de reconhecer onde você está e de compartilhar isso com esta comunidade. What happens in your daily experience when you actually begin practicing this form of sacred non-caring? The first thing you notice is how much energy you have been hemorrhaging through constant worry, constant concern, constant emotional involvement in situations that you cannot control and that ultimately do not serve your highest good. A colleague criticizes your work, and instead of spending the next 3 days ruminating, defending yourself mentally, planning your response, feeling the sting of rejection, you simply notice the feedback, extract anything useful, and move on. Your energy remains with you. Someone tries to start an argument, and instead of engaging, instead of needing to prove your point, instead of getting pulled into the drama, you recognize what is happening and choose not to participate. Your peace remains intact. A situation does not unfold the way you hoped, and instead of catastrophizing, instead of making it mean something terrible about the future, instead of spiraling into anxiety, you acknowledge disappointment while remaining anchored in the deeper knowing that you are okay regardless of circumstances. Your center holds. This is not about becoming emotionless or disconnected from life. This is about becoming so connected to something deeper, so rooted in your essential being, that the surface fluctuations no longer have the power to destabilize you. You care about things, yes, but you care from a place of choice rather than compulsion, from a place of wisdom rather than fear, from a place of love rather than need. The Hermetic principle of correspondence states that as above, so below, as within, so without. When you change your internal relationship to caring, when you shift from desperate attachment to conscious detachment, the external world begins to shift as well, not because you are controlling it, but because you are no longer creating resistance, no longer generating the friction that comes from trying to force reality to conform to your preferences. Think of a river flowing around a rock. The rock that tries to stop the flow creates turbulence, creates splashing, creates noise and disturbance. The rock that simply allows the flow to move around it experiences the water as a gentle, constant presence. You are learning to be the rock that allows rather than the rock that resists. This does not mean you become passive or that you stop taking action. Hall was very clear about this distinction. Spiritual detachment does not mean you stop engaging with life. It means you engage from a completely different quality of consciousness. You take action because it is right action, because it serves the highest good, because it aligns with your values and your purpose, not because you are trying to prove something, not because you are desperate for a particular outcome, not because you are running from fear or chasing validation. The action that emerges from this place of detachment carries a power and clarity that action born from attachment never can. There is no internal conflict, no part of you second-guessing, no energy wasted on doubt or worry. You do what you do fully, completely, and then you release it. The great Sufi poets understood this mystery in their verses about the lover and the beloved. Rumi writes about a kind of love that is so complete, so total, that it paradoxically requires nothing from the beloved. This is the love that exists for its own sake, that gives without needing to receive, that serves without needing recognition. This same quality of relationship can be brought to every aspect of your existence. You love people without needing them to love you back in a particular way. You give your gifts without needing applause. You speak your truth without needing agreement. You walk your path without needing others to understand or approve. This is the ultimate freedom that Hall pointed toward. This is the healing that begins when you choose to stop caring in the way the ego cares, when you choose to start caring in the way the soul cares. The ego cares desperately because it believes its survival depends on outcomes, on being right, on being accepted, on being successful according to external measures. The soul cares deeply but without attachment, because it knows its existence is not threatened by anything that happens in the realm of form, in the realm of circumstances, in the realm of other people's opinions and choices. Consider the story of the Buddhist monk who is insulted by a traveler on the road. The traveler, angry and disturbed by his own inner turmoil, unleashes a torrent of verbal abuse on the monk. When he finally finishes, the monk simply asks, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The traveler, confused, responds that it would still belong to the one who offered it. The monk nods and continues on his way, having not accepted the gift of anger and abuse that was offered. This story encapsulates the entire teaching we are exploring. You do not have to accept what others try to give you. You do not have to take on their anger, their judgment, their attempts to make you feel small or wrong or inadequate. You do not have to care about their assessments of you when those assessments come from their wounds, their fears, their limited perspective. This is not about being arrogant or dismissive. This is about maintaining your sovereignty, about protecting the sacred space of your consciousness from pollution, about choosing what you allow to influence your internal state. The person who has not developed this capacity is at the mercy of every passing energy, every random encounter, every thoughtless comment. The person who has cultivated spiritual detachment moves through the world like a ship with a deep keel, affected by the waves on the surface but remaining stable and directed by the rudder of their own intention and awareness. Hall taught that one of the greatest obstacles to spiritual development is what he called personal attachment to personal opinions. Most people are so identified with their thoughts, their beliefs, their perspectives, that when these are challenged, they experience it as a personal attack. They must defend their opinions as if defending their very life. But what if you could hold your opinions lightly? What if you could share your perspective while remaining open to being wrong, to learning something new, to discovering that your previous understanding was limited? This does not mean you have no convictions. This means your convictions are held in a different way, with a different quality of consciousness. You stand for what you believe in, you act on your values, but you are not at war with those who see things differently. You can engage in discussion, in debate even, without making it personal, without needing to win, without being crushed if your argument does not prevail. This capacity to engage without desperate attachment transforms not only your own experience but also your relationships with others. People sense when they are talking with someone who is not trying to prove anything, who is not defending a fragile ego, who is genuinely interested in truth rather than being right. This quality of presence invites a different kind of conversation, a deeper kind of connection, a more authentic kind of relationship. The practice of not caring, in the spiritual sense Hall intended, requires tremendous courage. It is actually far easier to stay stuck in the old patterns of desperate caring, of constant worry, of compulsive involvement in every drama. That pattern is familiar even though it is painful. Choosing to let go, choosing to stop caring in the old way, means stepping into unknown territory. It means trusting something you cannot see or control. It means allowing yourself to be vulnerable in a completely new way. Vulnerable to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you do not need to work so hard, try so hard, manage so hard. Maybe the universe is not as hostile as your fear tells you. Maybe you are not as fragile as your conditioning suggests. Maybe life can be trusted to unfold without your constant anxious intervention. The great spiritual traditions have always known that this trust, this relaxation into what is, this surrendering of the need to control, is the doorway to experiences of grace, of flow, of synchronicity that are impossible when you are gripping reality with white knuckles. When you finally open your hands, when you finally release your grip, you discover that what you were so afraid of losing was never yours to hold in the first place. And what you truly are, what you have always been, can never be lost or damaged or diminished by anything that happens in the world of form. Jung spoke of individuation, the process by which a person becomes psychologically whole, as requiring the integration of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we have rejected, denied, hidden away. Part of what we often hide in the shadow is our natural capacity for healthy detachment, for appropriate boundaries, for saying no, for choosing not to engage with every demand placed upon us. We learn early that we must care about everything, that we must be sensitive to everyone, that we must always be available, always responsive, always concerned. This becomes a prison. The process of healing, of becoming whole, requires reclaiming that part of yourself that knows how to preserve your energy, how to maintain your center, how to choose what deserves your attention and what does not. This is not selfishness. This is self-care at the deepest level. This is recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, that you cannot give to others what you have not first established within yourself, that you cannot be truly present for anyone when you are scattered across 100 different concerns and worries. The person who has learned to care appropriately, who has learned the art of spiritual detachment, actually has more to offer the world, not less. They are not depleted. They are not resentful. They are not operating from a place of obligation or guilt. They give freely because they have preserved something within themselves that is worth giving. There is a beautiful teaching in the Taoist tradition about Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. This does not mean doing nothing. It means acting in harmony with the natural flow of things, without forcing, without straining, without that quality of desperate effort that characterizes so much of human activity. The master of Wu Wei accomplishes great things while appearing to do very little, because they are working with the grain of reality rather than against it. They are not resisting what is. They are not trying to make reality conform to their preferences through sheer force of will. They observe, they understand, they align, they act with precision and timing, and then they release the outcome. This is the practical application of spiritual non-caring. You do what needs to be done with full commitment in the moment, and then you let go. You do not spend the next week, month, year worrying about whether it was enough, whether it will succeed, whether others will approve. You trust the process. You trust the unfolding. You trust that you did your part, and now it is time to move on to the next moment, the next task, the next opportunity to show up fully without the burden of attachment to results. As you begin to practice this way of being, you will likely encounter resistance from others. The people around you have become accustomed to your patterns of over-caring, of being overly available, of taking on their problems and emotions. When you start to change, when you start to establish boundaries, when you start to choose differently about what you engage with and what you release, some people will not understand. Some will accuse you of becoming cold, or uncaring, or selfish. This is where you must hold steady in your understanding of what you are actually doing. You are not becoming less loving. You are becoming more loving in a way that is sustainable, in a way that does not deplete you, in a way that actually serves the highest good of all involved even when they cannot see it yet. You are teaching people by your example that it is possible to care deeply about someone without taking responsibility for their feelings, their choices, their problems. You are showing that it is possible to be present without being enmeshed, to be supportive without being codependent, to love without losing yourself in the process. This teaching is one of the greatest gifts you can offer to those around you, even if they initially resist it. Hall would remind us that the path of spiritual development is not about reaching some distant state of perfection. It is about the daily practice of choosing more consciously, of responding more wisely, of releasing more fully. Every moment offers you the opportunity to practice this art of sacred non-caring. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you can either rage about their rudeness or you can simply adjust your speed and continue on your way, leaving the incident behind you rather than carrying it for the rest of the day. Your child fails a test and you can either make it a catastrophe or you can help them learn from the experience without attaching your worth as a parent to their academic performance. A project at work does not succeed, and you can either spiral into self-doubt or you can extract the lessons and move forward with your fundamental confidence intact. These small moments, these seemingly mundane choices, this is where the practice lives. This is where you either strengthen the old patterns of desperate caring or you forge the new neural pathways of conscious detachment. Every time you choose the latter, you are choosing healing. Every time you refuse to be swept away by the drama of circumstances, you are choosing freedom. Every time you remain anchored in your center while the storms rage around you, you are choosing peace. The mystics across traditions have always known that true enlightenment, true liberation, is not found in some future moment when everything finally aligns perfectly. It is found in the present moment when you finally stop resisting what is, when you finally accept that this moment exactly as it is the only moment you have, and it is enough. When you stop caring so desperately about changing what is, about making it different, about making it better, you discover something extraordinary. You discover that what you were seeking was always here, always available, always present beneath the surface noise of your desperate wanting and fearing and striving. The peace you have been seeking does not come from getting everything you want. It comes from no longer needing everything to be different than it is. The love you have been craving does not come from others finally seeing your value. It comes from recognizing that you are valuable independent of anyone's recognition. The freedom you have been chasing does not come from circumstances finally being under your control. It comes from releasing the need to control circumstances. This is the great reversal, the radical shift in perspective that marks the transition from suffering to healing. This is what Hall was pointing toward when he spoke of healing beginning with the choice to stop caring in the way the wounded ego cares. If you have found value in this exploration of how true healing emerges from the paradoxical practice of spiritual detachment, if you sense that there is something here that your soul has been seeking, then I invite you to continue this journey with us. This channel is dedicated to sharing the profound wisdom that thinkers like Manly Palmer Hall spent their lives uncovering and articulating, wisdom that remains as relevant today as when it was first taught. Each week we explore different facets of the spiritual path, different keys to unlocking the freedom and peace that is your birthright. If you feel called to go deeper into these teachings, to receive regular reminders of these transformative truths, please subscribe to this channel. This is not about building a following. This is about creating a community of genuine seekers who are committed to the inner work, who understand that real transformation requires dedication and practice, who are willing to question everything they have been taught in service of discovering what is actually true. Your presence here matters. Your willingness to engage with these teachings matters. Your commitment to your own spiritual evolution matters. I am honored to walk this path alongside you, and to share what Hall and countless others have passed down through the generations. Thank you for being here, for listening deeply, for considering these ideas not just intellectually, but as living practices that can transform your daily experience of being alive.